Right. Well, welcome everybody to the Digital Accessibility Center Design Thinking Challenge. My name is Katie. I'm an instructional designer, learning designer at Front Range Community College. Who else wants to introduce themselves? Deanna?
Sure, I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Montealegre. I am an instructional designer for University of Colorado Boulder. I always forget that name. I don't know why. In the continuing education division, and I am also a digital accessibility specialist for Front Range Community College and a contractor for Front Range Community College as well.
Hi, I'm Kay Novak, Assistant Director, Learning Design, Front Range Community College.
Hey, any of you other folks want to introduce yourselves? This is going to be interactive. We should get to know you. Also, don't underestimate how long I can stare at you at the screen here in awkward silence.
Awkward oboe. My name is Mike. I'm here just visiting. I'm currently a student, actually at Creighton University, but I also interact with a lot of people from universities in Colorado there. So I'm
How
here
did that
for
happen?
I'm not sure. I'm just here for moral support and to
And David
actually
laughs.
and to
Okay.
observe. Uh-oh.
Okay.
I scared him off.
So here's the thing. It's all us. Okay. Okay. Michael, I know is Nom. And I have gamed with him. And that's how we know him. So consider everybody's insiders. We scared everybody else out. Okay. So here's the thing. This session can be as long or as short as we want it to be.
All right. Sounds good. I have put together a slideshow here, adding a little bit of linearness to the festivities. The goal for the design thinking workshop is to think about the creation of a digital accessibility center, which meets the requirements of Colorado's new accessibility law. If you don't know what that is, here's kind of a summary. Basically, any Colorado government entity that doesn't meet the web accessibility standards could be subject to injunctive relief, meaning a court order to fix the problem, which would be nice, frankly. Actual monetary damages, which are kind of scary. A fine of $3,500 payable to the plaintiff, who must be somebody from the disability community. Does anybody have any strong feelings about the new law?
It should have been in place a long time ago.
Yeah, you get a thumbs up. Is anybody a little freaked out about the possibility of lawsuits? Is anybody keeping a list of people they can sue to make themselves a little money on the side?
I'm going, no, not, I don't have my list, not at least for this one. I'm going to put a little skepticism into this. And I'm going to say that the pushback's going to get a little, it's going to be a little more and a little more. We're starting to hear rumors and rumblings about this happening July 1st, about it coming in on July 1st. And those rumors and rumblings we're hearing are that it might get extended.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to read that law. I know everybody. Okay, so put on your politics hat for a moment. Okay, could be subject to injunctive relief. You know, what does that mean? Injunctive relief means the court tells you you got to do it. Meaning a court order to fix the problem, actual monetary damages or a fine payable to the plaintiff. Now, all of that is saying that some court has to agree that this is what should happen. So if this gets taken to court, that means that a judge is going to say, yes, we're going to fine you this. There are lots of laws out there that have fines that aren't enforced. So I know everybody's looking at the dollar amount, but you know, there is a scenario where for a year or two, the courts could just go, oh, okay, well, you need to come up with a plan to take care of this. So what I'm saying is I have a little bit of skepticism, and I have some thoughts about, are the courts going to start enforcing this right away? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think about it, Rehab Act came in 76. Section 508, that is the digital accessibility portion, came out in 98, I think. We are in 2024 and we're still fighting this. And those are federal laws. I don't see how actually a smaller, per se, law that is just based in Colorado is actually going to be more impactful than that. I'm being kind of like Katie as well. Not trying to be negative, but just trying to be realistic based on, you know, based on what we have observed. Oh,
Yeah.
Kat is here. She's
Yeah,
actually
Kat.
very knowledgeable about this stuff as well. So, Kat, actually, can you introduce yourself and start talking?
We've all introduced ourselves, Kath. So, and Kath, it's okay if you want to learn. Kath has been very participatory in a lot of these sessions. And actually the question that what we've done so far is we've introduced ourselves, and we were just talking about whether or not we think that if this is going to be enforced right away. So we were just talking about HB 21-1110.
She mute herself, but I cannot hear in case she's talking. So.
I don't know. I think there may be some folks who will test it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's appropriate.
So in the meantime, I guess we better get our acts together with our accessibility, which brings up the next point. If you're ready, the idea of an accessibility center. Shall we go there?
You bet.
Go. All right. Okay. So I don't know if you're familiar with the design thinking process. I think you probably are. But there are several steps here to it, which we will go through. We'll start with empathy, move on to kind of taking those things that we have come up with while empathizing and define the problem. Ideate, come up with ideas for possible solutions, prototype, and then test those solutions. And if you would like some more information on each of these steps, there is a link here to the design thinking bootleg from Stanford University, which I will place in the chat if I can find it. Let me see. All right, here's the link to the bootleg, which gives you some more information, some verbiage on what empathizing looks like, defining, ideating, prototyping, etc. But let's go back here and let's talk about these things more in depth. Oh, I should also mention there is a cheat sheet which Kay has come up with for the latter parts of the bootleg. There's little kind of individual activities, I guess you would call them, for each of the steps. I'll put that in the chat as well.
And if I could just interrupt for just a
Sure.
second, we now have, okay, so our people are coming in here. So I almost want to do a reintroduction just because of the phenomenal people that I see who are coming in here. So let's just redo it real quickly. I'm Kay Novak, Assistant Director, Front Range Community College, Learning Design.
Yep. Katie, learning designer as well, Front Range Community College.
Diana Montealegre, instructional designer, digital accessibility specialist for Boulder and Front Range Community College. It's fast.
Moderator, who are you?
I am Mouse, and I am brand new learning design tech with Kay and Katie at Front Range Community College. But I'm not new to the department. I was a student worker with Kay in the online learning department for a year and a half before I graduated with my associates in science, computer science. So, but looking very forward to getting into the instructional design field. So.
So I was going to say, anybody else who'd like to go? Kath, Leslie, Michael, Soma?
Sure. I'm Soma Ghosh. I'm the Student and Instructional Support Specialist with Academic Technology, CCCS.
Thank you for being here, Soma.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Kath Stager. I'm an Accessibility and Assistive Technology Specialist at Front Range.
My name is Mike. I'm a former instructor, and I'm actually here just for moral support. I'm a student at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska.
We have Leslie and Teresa out and Jean. Actually, we're getting more people. Yeah.
I'm Leslie Herr, and I just happened to see it on the list, and I'm like, hey, I want to join in on that. And see what everybody has to say. I am a CIS faculty.
And Teresa and Jing, if you would like to introduce yourselves, that'd be fine. Oh, no problem, Teresa. Keep eating. I understand. It's noon there. Okay, so Jing, introduce yourself if you feel like it. Ah, it's understandable. No, don't worry about it. Yeah, keep multitasking.
Totally get it.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Overall, here's the thing. We're a small group, so we're being a little less formal than we would have been if it was a big group. In Colorado, we are working through the requirements for HB 211110. Now, a lot of the people on the call are from Front Range Community College. Yay, Jing! Nice to see you. Here's the thing that we have. All of our institutions are being asked to come up with accessibility plans. And some of our institutions are getting lots of input from people, and some are just, I don't, not my institution, but are having like closed doors meetings about it. At my institution, a couple of people on the call are on like a subcommittee with me on digital accessibility. And we were tasked to come up with some ideas. And Kath, if you don't mind me me calling out to you, and I forget the exact term you used, but I think your idea was like mentors, or it falls under like mentorship. Would you mind sharing it with people, because I think that then plays into what we can try and brainstorm after that.
Absolutely. Well, I think what we need to do overall is raise the floor, increase
Mhm.
everyone's basic knowledge, but to have everyone even consider going to well-informed decisions about accessibility, we have to have people they feel safe asking.
Mm.
And when we layer our support in those who have gone ahead and taken a Foundations in Accessibility course, like the one available from the Web Accessibility Initiative at the W3C. If for folks who have gone ahead and done that basic level, we've opened up their empathy, we've created at least basic understanding. And then if they can have someone who they feel safe reaching to, and that next level has folks they feel safe saying, oh, let me talk to someone who's a little bit more expert and get back to you on that. Then we're going to have that interaction and trickle down effect that also trickles back up.
So I'm typing this out, Kath. So how would I typed out raise the base and levels of mentorship. Do you have an overarching name for this?
Well, I think within it, just having a coalition is your base level. So if we have a accessibility coalition that's just part of our Teams, Microsoft Teams. So if you take that foundation level course, you become part of the accessibility coalition. And then if you're more comfortable stepping up to the next level, or if you have more expertise, you could become one of the mentor cohort, perhaps. And then if we had additional cohorts that were broken into areas that either were role related, subject related. You know, as an admin, I have to know how to do accessible emails. I have to create accessible posters. But my needs aren't going to be the same as someone, for instance, like Leslie, who eventually will be incorporating all of the accessibility aspects into her computer courses. It's going to be a different level. So how we get there, that's always a challenge. One of the big things as we are trying to elicit interest and support, I think, is to offer multiple ways of getting to that comfort level with accessibility. And if we have an overall coalition, you know, maybe some people will be saying, hey, I want to learn more about this. And that becomes a natural cohort as a springboard. And if that group has a choice, oh, we can learn about this here or here. We could do quick talks. We could do guided learning. We could all work on badges together. Having those choices is obviously going to increase engagement and make people feel more empowered.
I'm typing everything.
Thank you. I
Keep talking.
appreciate that.
If you want, keep talking.
Well, you know, the accessibility touches so many different areas that some areas can be really fun to discuss. And
Okay.
one of the big things that I think we're facing at Front Range, and I got my hand slapped for, was saying, I got my hand slapped for saying we should not be saying this is hard, because we're creating a mindset. And when we say we're not going to meet this goal, we're not being inclusive anymore. We're also violating people's civil rights. But, you know, I think by setting the expectations that, yes, you know, it's going to be inch by inch, row by row, that we can grow this type of understanding that accessibility helps us all. If I have more than one way to look at an interesting topic that came up as a challenge to us as a department was to create an accessible method of demonstrating your knowledge of the rock cycle.
Okay.
So the online instructors reached out to us to create a way to have what the initial way they did it was go ahead and draw out this cycle. Well, you know, some folks can't draw, some folks will be stumped by what tools to use. So we came up with a PowerPoint slide sorting activity where you just sorted them into the logical order and had that become the way to interact that was accessible for everyone. It didn't depend upon images solely, but it used images to support it. So you have multiple means of representation, multiple means of interaction. I have to increase your, okay, let's see. Nice, liking it. I'm just reading what you got there.
Okay. So, in a meeting that we were in, Kath was able to not expand on it as much as she did right now with us, which was really good. So you're thinking that an accessibility coalition, an overarching accessibility coalition.
That all you have to do is, you know, and I think we also should have the way, you know, I loved Diana's test yourself model. Test your knowledge. Loved it. Absolutely. I think, you know, some people could say, hey, you know, I don't need to take that foundations course. I've tested out. And it was a self-testing model that Diana demonstrated for us.
Check
I
with
was
Deanna.
wondering if that was still active.
Okay, so an accessibility coalition at a college. For those of you who are at different institutions, how do you think that would go at your organization or an institution? Do you think, I'm trying to figure out if you think it would be embraced, and if it isn't embraced, what could be done to embrace it?
I want to jump in there.
Yeah, go.
So the problem that I have encountered in the different institutions that I have worked for, not only here in Colorado, but I work actually with some schools in Florida as well. And I bring this up. And you know how Florida is. It's the fact that a lot of actually, after I talk to instructors and faculty, put things into perspective, that this is not because you have, I don't know why they take it that way, that you have a blind student. That's usually the way that I hear a lot of it. Oh no, I don't have a blind student, so I don't need to make things accessible. But once I put a perspective on them, this is, you know, universal design for part of universal design for learning. This is going to benefit all of us. I'm not blind myself, I'm dyslexic. This is going to help me, you know, and I put that empathy in them and actually expands the concept and the misconception that digital accessibility has. They're all about it. They want to learn more about it. They really want to implement this. but the problem is the support from higher ups. That's the main issue. We don't have support from higher ups because in their heads is, let's do the bare minimum until we get sued. Like, that's the way that they see it. They see it from the legal standpoint. The do the bare minimum is pretty much having a digital accessibility office that serves those students that have a disability record, a medical disability record, but what about those that don't? So there is a lot of limitations, again, because we don't have the support from higher ups, and they're just basing their decisions in the legal aspect and the minimal requirements to serve students that have documented disabilities.
Okay, so that Kath discussed having a growth mindset towards this. So, and Deanna, you're saying, what you're saying, if I'm getting this correctly, is need to change leadership's view.
Change the mentality of leadership and actually giving us the little people, the way that I put it, giving us a chance to actually talk to leadership, to be able to explain this to them, to be able to put that empathetic view in them about how this is beneficial for all audience, not for just the students that have a documented disability. Like Jessica said in the comment, she's not deaf, but she prefers closed captioning. I'm not deaf either, and I don't have any problems listening either, but I prefer closed captioning because many times, depending on accent, depending on how fast the person talks, English is not my first language. I prefer the caption. You know, when I see the caption and I hear, I was like, oh, okay, I understand.
And quite frequently, that was a selling point that folks would hear when we were first introducing accessibility over the years. I mean, you know, at CSU, we had a fantastically supportive VP. That is why Colorado State Fort Collins had the first digital accessibility policy in the nation. You know, we made our first accessibility policy back in 2003, I think it was. So, you know, and that of course was continued because we had a VP who was supportive. And it was something he innately understood as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think actually reaching leadership
at
to
CU,
change their view.
At CU, leadership didn't even listen until there was the lawsuit.
2014.
And no retaliation, of course, would ever happen from CU, but hey, I don't have my job there anymore.
So what it's sounding like we need to change the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've changed cultures before.
And writing the inclusive equity bus, I guess you could call it, whatever. You know, by going ahead and remembering that disability is part of that.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
yeah, I think
a lot of times it's overlooked. Go ahead.
I think a lot of institutions right now, including CU, are really focusing on DEI. I'm part of the committee in our division. I'm actually the chair for the committee of our division this year. And if we actually push in a gentle way, accessibility and disabilities into this group of DEI, that might take that little turn that we need for the change of culture. Because it is part of DEI, but many times DEI is focusing on all of the other stuff that we know what it is about. But the group, the population that is actually, you know, affected by the many disabilities, including the disabilities that are not, visual, that they're invisible, are not included in this group, which it should, because this is all part of the inclusion. This is all part of different audiences that we have, the different aspects that we have, and disabilities, what I like to call special abilities, are part of this.
I stole the screen from Katie. Sorry, Katie. But it was to pull this up, and I know people who know me have heard me say this before. But Deanna, yeah, if we're gonna do the culture change, let's start calling it design justice. And
Yes.
here, let's start calling it design justice. And when you go into this book, there is, and I'm not saying that, I'm not religious, so this is no religious text for me, but it is a way to get people to start thinking about it, a reference, and I mean, nothing about us without us. It was a slogan from the disability rights movement, and maybe and maybe if we discuss it like that, maybe we can see some movement. So I will give the screen back to you, Kitty. So our accessibility coalition, to start the accessibility coalition, do we start doing it hand in hand and talking DEI and design justice then?
Yes.
And what other
It is part of it.
Oh,
that's a good point. But what other aspects would have to be considered besides accessibility in design justice?
Design justice goes really broad.
Right.
So it's intersectionality. So I have a slide for that, because I have slides for everything. Well, no, I don't. There are lots of topics I do not have slides for. But it would have to go into, and I think that works really well for DEI if we start thinking, about intersectionality. Yeah, I'm taking it back again, but I got these. Let's find intersection. Let's go to I. So it would be saying that this is a part of intersectionality that is ignored. So I think it can fit in there. Now, Kath, and I'm going to ask everybody else. Kath, I know you've worked in what is considered an official disability services capacity. Has anybody else here worked in that capacity?
I don't know if I will be considered when I work at Front Range, because I was the accessibility person. So maybe.
So
Okay, like that.
I'm going, but you were a slash. Okay, anybody who wasn't a slash, like work, and the reason why I'm asking this, I'm asking it to find out what the barriers were. Why wasn't this? There's been a lot of DEI movements at colleges. why wasn't disability considered in that?
Hmm.
Any ideas?
It's a very diverse group.
Okay, yeah, okay.
You can have folks who will totally talk about their disabilities. You'll have folks who would never acknowledge they have a disability.
Mm.
You have folks who wouldn't put their child through a program, wouldn't get them an IEP because then they'd be labeled.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stigma that's still
Mhm.
associated with disability, even though it is less than it used to be.
Mhm.
It's not as sexy a area.
Mm.
Honestly, I am the kind of person, and I just recently wrote a paper about that. I celebrate disabilities. I honestly celebrate them because they are part of the diversity in today's society. I have a child that, like I said before in other presentations, that has several disabilities. He has 5 different disabilities, and I'm always encouraging to say it out loud and be proud of it. Like, there's nothing wrong with being dyslexic, with having ADHD, because this like Kat was saying in a previous presentation as well, having this actually opens other senses and other skills in that person that, quote unquote, we regular people don't.
So is it?
So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Disability just like, I'm gonna bring multilingualism, should be celebrated, should be encouraged, to not be a shameful concept, because that's a lot of the concepts that, like, me growing up, I had what we call in Colombia the IP, the version of the IP in Colombia. But when I went to college, I didn't want it because I was ashamed of having that label that I was disabled. I was like, no, my mentality has switched so much. I was like, no, I should not be ashamed of that. I'm neurodivergent. I'm special, and that's what makes me unique.
Now, so we go knocking on the doors of the, like the DEI offices and and say, can you include us here in this? Is that one way to bring a culture of accessibility into a college?
It's one way, but it's only one way.
Okay.
How much power the DEI people has when it comes to, again, the administration, the higher up administration. They're just another group of, like I call it, little people like us.
Okay.
I'm Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie, what do you think?
I'm eating lunch, that's why my camera's not on. I think that one of the things that we don't really think about is the fact that some people have labels and some people don't. But if everyone was tested for every label, everyone would probably get some sort of label.
Absolutely.
And so when you're talking about digital accessibility, you're really talking about, accommodating everyone, not just people that have the label. It's an inclusion issue. And, because think about all the people that don't have the money to go get the label, even if they wanted it. And then there are people that don't have the label that you're standing there going, as you're trying to be a teacher and teach them, and you're like, yeah, I know that this is really real, but I can't say a word.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that, you know, and the labels only help to a certain point, and then they don't help anymore, I think.
Okay, so
Imagine if, say, folks who felt they were ethnic or had an ethnic identity had to declare so they could have their accommodations for ethnicity. That's one of the, there's a, pardon me. There's a recent movement by a couple of high-ranking folks in education that are PhD level folks with blindness, and that whole concept of having to declare your disability in order to have accommodations is anathema to them. That's, you know, and I worked when I worked at CSU at first, back in 97, I was at the Office of Resources for Disabilities, working with a woman with Fragile X, who was the director, Rose Creston. And she asked us to draft some guidelines for requesting accommodations. And being a wheelchair user herself, presenting very obviously as someone with a disability, she was irate when we suggested, well, you know, if you need an accessible classroom, you show up to your classroom and it's not accessible on that first day, give us 24 hours. Because if you didn't tell us ahead of time, we can't pre-plan. But she said, well, I'm here now. Nobody else in the class has to say what their abilities are. This just isn't right. So she had us work on them for like 6 months and then toss them all to the wind.
but yeah, she was talking about a design issue.
Exactly.
That, yeah, that the space was designed only, you know, only for people who walked.
There's a very famous story at CU of how folks during the ADA, push for ADA, they climbed the library stairs, crawled up the stairs, just like at the Capitol
Mm.
and in Denver.
So, if we've been talking about culture, if we now start to focus on let's say that we can do some of the things that Kath and others have suggested with maybe changing the culture, and then this next step, let's discuss this a little bit and brainstorm it. and Katie, I know we're veering away from the design thinking steps, but I think it's working anyway. What about a digital accessibility center? So let's brainstorm that. There's already most institutions have a disability services office, and there's a lot of services that are being provided. What would we need to do, for example, in Colorado, if we are going to make everything that's on websites and everything in online courses, if we were going to make that accessible, and we could fund a digital accessibility center, and we could even come up with a number. Let's say that the state is going to give us some kind of grant that can help fund this. What would we want in a digital accessibility center that would have to remediate documents, work with videos, What else? Help me list what else.
Yeah, and that's where I would have started. What roles would we expect from this?
Translators.
Is it a teaching center? Is it a train the trainer center?
Mm,
Is it a remediation center?
okay, let's start listing some of the things. Okay, so you said translators, right, Deanna?
Yeah. Can you share your screen
Yeah,
with what you're writing?
sure. So so we said translators,
Translator, testers,
testers. Oh,
remediators,
okay.
captioners.
Trainers?
Trainers. What else? Mouse, do you have some ideas? You've been doing a lot of accessibility stuff for us. Do you have any ideas? If there was a digital accessibility center.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on the right track there. I don't have anything to add, but Kath did say a train the trainer. So someone, really kind of a group overseeing everything that's more administrative and staying on top of the legislation that might be coming up, as well as what are those minimum requirements and standards that we need to set.
I almost want to say policy expert. We'll figure out a better term, like a better term for that, but remediators, captioners, trainers, train the trainers.
In terms of, I don't have really roles, but I would say that, it would be nice to have, software that, people, use for, accessibility.
Assistive technology.
So that they would, yeah, assistive technology, so that they would, people would be able to come and see it demonstrated. Because what I think is that, like, what I was saying earlier, that there's a subculture of people that have labels. I think that, raising the, overall intelligence about assistive technology and how it can be personally implemented into your own life. And there are many students, for example, I know, that use screen readers that have no label. And I think that it would also be helpful to be able to see, to get perspective on what a person, for example, that uses JAWS, what their experience is, and how and how you could take your own document and play with it and really get an understanding of what a person that uses JAWS or something else would experience. So I think assistive technology could be a real plus. I'm not sure that it would be the highest priority, but I do think that it could create more awareness and engagement too, because it would give purpose to it and support changing the culture.
Well, I like that point in general. I mean, folks who are using JAWS, voiceover, whatever, they're going to use their screen readers in different ways in different situations. And no two screen reader user is the same. You're not going to have any screen reader users always say, yep, that's the way I want my alt text. They're all going to have their own opinions. Some people, especially folks who've had vision previously, will want more details in there. Other folks who've never had vision, for instance, they're like, don't tell me that. if there's an image and it has any meaning, tell me what it is in 2 words and move on. I don't care.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's going to run the gamut as well. But, you know, one of the beauties of that foundations course offered by the way, WAI, is that it does create that empathy. It has those demonstrations of why a screen reader user might run into an issue in this kind of situation. Why does the design of different product, why does good design show up seamlessly, but bad design just become a thorn in your back?
Can you share in the chat that course, please?
Yeah, it's the W3C World Wide Web Consortium WAI Foundations course. And that's the one that we're going to try and get associated with NeoWeb so we can track folks learning if they want.
Wow.
WAI.
Now, in this,
Foundations course then itself, the course.
so in our digital accessibility center, what kind, so we have translators, testers, remediators, captioners, trainers, maybe some policy experts. When it comes to this, are we gonna have it where say faculty or people or staff just drop off things to be remediated? Or would would it be that this is a place where people can go and sit down and get some assistance for it?
Ideally, my personal opinion is that we should be, yeah, we can help them remediate depending on the complexity of the documents or applications.
Hmm?
But we should be aiming to teach them at least basic accessibility guidelines for them to start creating documents from the get-go as accessible documents. Because it is much difficult to remediate an existing document that start with a fresh document with accessibility guidelines in mind.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Born accessible.
Yep.
And I think, you know, what Leslie was talking about was the concept essentially of an empathy center.
Okay. Oh, wow. That is an interesting way to put it. Now,
I believe OIT at the government's office is working on creation of an empathy center.
they do have some things on there. If anybody feels like Googling it, Colorado OIT, I
Yeah.
think they have some empathy workshops and stuff like that.
Yes, they do.
So an empathy center now would this empathy center be is that what we call the digital accessibility center? Or do we have to be very specific that a certain amount of production's done at the?
I think that if you call it empathy center, it's gonna, that, to me, that would be annoying. Because it wouldn't be really representative of what it actually does.
Okay.
You could put empathy center at the end of the name, but I want the functional, you know,
Okay.
what the heck is this place? And going to empathy, oh, is that where I go get therapy? Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
my opinion.
so other thoughts on this? So we have some of the roles. Okay. When it comes to this, it's interesting that one, you know, that there seems to be a production. There's a production side to this. And then it seems like there's a training side to it. And then also another category is an empathy side to it. but we won't call it an empathy center.
I think that the Digital Accessibility Center is one piece of an overall of bringing digital accessibility awareness and community intelligence to our college. I think that it's only one piece. And I think that having somebody run it, somebody hired to run it would be a good idea. And that we would get students involved in that and get students trained. I think that would also be another piece. But the person who would run the Disability Accessibility Center would see it as one person. I mean, that would oversee that, but that wouldn't be all of their job. And that they would probably work very closely with our instructional design coaches that already have beautiful input and are amazing.
So having students work there, close affiliations. Yes, because what Deanna said is true. If you can if you can get things made accessible from the get-go, much easier.
Another thing
Yes.
you have, you know, where would this live?
Yes.
What is most appropriate? I mean, you'd have to have whoever's running it to be at least director level, or it would be pointless. And where does it live? What makes sense? I know many of them are nationally are housed within IT. And when they do have the IT branding, they frequently have better leverage on campus.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Kath on that because thinking of putting it in disability services, it just limited.
Right,
And they
and
will
that's not
see.
DS's role. I mean, DSS is about students.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one of the problems that I have seen a lot too, that when it comes to accessibility in higher ed institutions, disability services is just about the students, but what about staff, faculty, instructors?
Yeah. I was about to say academic support, but you're right. Not sure academic support does it either.
Yeah.
Right, and is it ADA? You know, is it the same as an ADA Title IX coordinator, for instance? You know, and should it live in equity? Should it live in the DEI program? There's
There's a lot of
advantages and
people that don't,
disadvantages. Go ahead.
they just have a lot of controversial comments about DEI. So that might be another barrier. So yeah, based on the comments or the options that we're giving, IT is the best place to be.
But okay, so let's talk about this. Is IT well known for giving great support?
And that's always a question.
No. God damn.
There's a whole series of
Luckily I was muted because I just laughed really hard.
Same.
I mean, the thing of it, I will, I will, we have a whole series, like a, a funny reels almost of how many times things have been sent, questions have been sent from IT to us. And, and a lot of it is like, there, I've actually had IT, and I'm talking about learning designers, the learning design and technology team, that IT say, well, you're extroverts, so you should handle this. It's also, well, you're just nicer than we are. And a lot of it is, when you drill down to it, a lot of it was, you're female and you're friendly.
Hmm.
No,
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
reserve my comment.
yeah, but a lot of it, like, oh, you're extroverts, and we just happen to, at this point in time, have an all-female team. And yes, we might be a little more pleasant on the phone than when people call IT. So if it gets housed in IT, are there going to be, I mean, an expertise level will be considered, but people give up on calling IT for a lot of things.
I think IT would make it more intimidating possibly to go there. But I mean, for FRCC, I think their IT is pretty good in terms of customer service. But I think that in general, IT could be considered more intimidating. So, Kay, don't forget that we can see you, what you're doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll stop.
we can play
I
a
was
good
just checking if there was any messages.
That oh, you stopped my video, huh? Okay.
I'm back.
But anyway, I just feel like, that, something like the Teaching Excellence Center
Hmm.
is a better fit for it. Although that could feel as though staff are not included, but on the other hand, it could make it so that there's more of a bridge between staff and faculty. A forced bridge between the two, because in most institutions, in my experience, there's a divide between faculty and staff.
And maybe it's co-housed, maybe maybe it gets a special designation.
I think it would need a special designation, because everything we've been talking about, other than putting it in IT, we just have a lot of silos.
Absolutely.
So having it, other than and I will say, so sometimes IT, it just feels like closed off. And while it can service, it can service both staff and faculty and students, it oftentimes feels like it's kind of its like own animal. Does anybody have any examples of co-housed or a special designation that seems to have worked?
Well, the Do It Center at Washington,
Okay,
University of Washington.
okay, let's put that in.
When they remodeled the accessibility efforts at CU Boulder, they created that whole new testing unit and took all the assistive technology out of DSS. So you can't actually even get assistive technology support on CU Boulder campus anymore, which was kind of a
Caveat. Learn from this.
And that unit also had a role to do all the product testing for production, I mean, for
Yeah.
procurement. And that was way too big of a task. I mean, I saw them burn through several folks who coordinated the product testing side.
Mm. Anybody else see where it worked well or where it didn't work well, or have ideas about where a digital accessibility center could go?
There was a good affiliation with the main libraries in at CSU. Very supportive of all the accessibility efforts and a lot of assistive technology support as well. And that was, I mean, at CSU, it was in the TILT, so instructional design. It was part of the occupational therapy program with the ATRC. It was part of DSS and the libraries. And those different areas, I mean, the accessibility movement wasn't specific to one area. Having so much ownership was a mixed blessing. You know, one of the things about CSU's IT programs are that there was one central IT, but most of the colleges had individual IT departments.
Okay.
So that more distributed model of IT. And, you know, we totally could bring in Mike Williamson, who runs the digital accessibility office. Costa's actually the official head, but Mike's the one who knows what he's doing.
Okay, we're getting close to our 85 minutes. And Katie, you did such a great job at bringing up the design thinking things. Please share your please put a link to your slides. And the reason is, well, we didn't use them necessarily for this, but if anybody wanted to brainstorm out a digital accessibility center or anything else when it comes to getting a group together to brainstorm this, Katie did a great job if we had followed the slides.
I guess I would ask, are we just looking for options other than in instructional design? Because I really feel like that is just part of instructional design. It's going to encompass all classes, because even in-person classes now, I mean, the law is for web access, but what in-person class doesn't have everything on a website anyway.
But also, what does the president's admin know about going to instructional design?
Yeah.
So what about the new hire who has to create, you know, handouts for or anybody creating a PowerPoint to do a presentation, you know?
Yep. And I'm not saying utilize the instructional design department that's already there. I think there needs to be a wing that is connected to and familiar with the crew in instructional design.
I like that.
Mhm.
I mean, we have a fair amount of accessibility expertise on at Front Range, but it's definitely a little bit over here, a little bit over there, all over the place as far as. And, you know, no role to work together. Deanna, are there any special aspects that you like of what's happening at CU Boulder currently? With accessibility movements or promotion or anything like that?
I mean, I like what Coastal Group is doing. They're really trying to have a unified message when it comes to accessibility for the campus. Ali is doing a fantastic job offering trainings as well. Mike, like I said, he runs the accessibility testing, and he does a really great job with that. It's I feel is just what we were talking about earlier, that they're a small group, not a lot of people know about them. You know, every time that I do presentations, I'm always promoting them. I'll say, hey, you have questions, go to them. But not a lot of people know about them. And like I said, if there was a communication from the higher ups about this team, you know, the expertise, what they offer will be great.
And what's the abbreviation for that group? I'll Google.
DAO.
DAO.
Yeah, just put DAOCU.
See you.
It will come
Oh
up right
yeah.
away.
Okay.
There it is.
There. Okay, got it.
Yeah, they actually send monthly newsletters with like little tips on accessibility. They offer one-on-one trainings, they offer group trainings, they offer mediations, they offer captions. Obviously, the captions, if you don't have an accommodation letter, you have to pay for that.
Mm.
But yeah, they offer a little bit of everything.
Okay. I don't know if Jing's still in her meeting. And the reason I was gonna say that is if anybody else has any like ending comments, questions, or anything or anything else. Yeah, Jing is. Okay, no problem. Thanks. Okay, then I think that we can close this down. We have ideas. Katie, your thoughts?
You know, it would have been nice to come up with some kind of action items. But barring that, I guess we'll have to have another meeting another time for those.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for another great conversation and thoughts about what we can do. Mouse, you're muted.
Oh, drat. There's an evaluation to fill out. That's all.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Couldn't get the chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy the chat as well, actually.